Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today's video is actually part of a video blog hop. We'll get into a video hop, y'all. We'll get into more details for that a little bit later. Today we're just going to be using this one stamp set. This is part of the Build a Garden set. Also has stencils and dies, but we're just going to be using this stamp set today to do a spotlight technique, which I haven't done in a really long time, but I totally love. I think it's a super effective technique. And so here I have just pulled out some of my Altenew masking paper, and I'm going to be stamping my images on that. I knew that I was going to have some overlapping images, so I was already preparing with my masking to make sure I had everything I needed. And actually, some of these leaves I didn't even end up using, but I definitely used the flowers. I probably should have stamped another set of the flowers, but to be quite honest with you, I was just being lazy. If you do this, I would recommend stamping 2 sets of the flowers so that way you don't have to keep moving them like I did. I kept having to peel them off and put them back on, and that was kind of meh. So before we get into the stamping, I did just want to show you, because I'm doing the spotlight technique with 2 different pieces of cardstock that are 2 different sizes. I chose to give myself like a little bit of a grid. This is not, well, it's not even a grid. It's like a place, it's like a marker for my A2 size card. And mine isn't perfectly centered. You got out my ruler and tried to do my best to get it relatively centered. Just because, you know, the way the stamp wheel turns, you need to have the same amount of space on one side and the other for you to not have to like move all of the stamps. But so I did this, and you can see I'm just using a Copic marker. It's like a black Copic marker, and I'm just drawing right on to my pad. Don't freak out, like don't panic. You can clean this up with stamp cleaner or colorless blender or alcohol. I don't know if Altenew recommends you using those. I used a stamp cleaner and it was fine. I'll show you that at the end. But here, so this is just an A2 size card. I'm just kind of marking the top and the bottom. And then I'm going to put my lines in. This is just going to make it easier as I keep picking up and placing down the cardstock, because they are 2 different sizes, to make sure that I'm getting them in the same-ish place for each of my stampings. And you'll see that, you'll see the stamp cleaner here thing in just a minute, because I actually ended up moving this line up too high. For some reason, I had little marks there. I don't know why. And you can see like my card does not, it does not fit. So I had to move that line down, but then I wanted to get rid of the one in the middle just so I didn't get confused. And so I just used a little bit of stamp cleaner. The one that I used is the Ultra Clean from Hero Arts, because that's what I have on hand. And I just sprayed a little bit on a baby wipe. And then I just went in and rubbed that little line away, and it cleaned up with really no issues. So yeah, don't panic that like I've ruined it. I haven't. It's fine, and I'll be able to clean it up if I don't want to keep it. I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. But so yeah, once I had this in place, then I have 2 different pieces of cardstock. I have a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and then I have a 3 3/4 by 5 inch piece of cardstock. And you'll see here that just kind of fits on the inside there, and that's so that we can create the spotlight. I chose to do a rectangle, but you do not have to. You could do this with a circle die cut. You could do this with any sort of, you know, general geometric shape that would totally work for the spotlight technique. You could even do it with you could do it with a detailed die, I suppose, if you had one that had a large area in which you could do the highlighting. So here I'm just laying out my flowers. These flowers have a really gorgeous detail layer, but I chose not to use it today since I had so much going on with the spotlight technique with the gray in the back and the colors. I just chose to leave off the detail layer and just let the flowers kind of just be what they were. This is the I had to Google it, y'all, so that I made sure that I didn't mispronounce it. It is the Esplanade flowers, and this is the Build a Garden set for the April release. And so I stamped my 3 flowers, and because like I didn't prep them in any way whatsoever. I didn't prep them in any way whatsoever. I did have to stamp them twice with the obsidian ink, and it was because of the way that the stamp wheel works, and it's also a positioner. I didn't have any issues. Here I can very quickly see that I'm going to have some overlap with my flowers, which is no big deal. That is why we cut the masks. So I'm going to, before I move on to doing it the other way, I am going to stamp these flowers. I haven't moved them at all. I'm going to stamp them onto my smaller piece of cardstock, and then this way they're going to line up perfectly, the smaller cardstock on top of the larger cardstock, and this is what is going to give us the ability to create that kind of spotlight technique where we have the kind of black and white or gray tones in the background, and then the colored portion on top. This is typically a little bit larger. Like my rectangle is a little bit larger than I would normally do. However, I just really wanted just like a little peek of the black and white. I wanted there to be lots of color because I think these flowers are really beautiful. And I think that they will be even prettier with kind of the layered, like the little stripy layer that's included in the set. But like I said, it was going to be too busy for what I had going on. But all the spotlight technique is basically just doing either no coloring, just line work, kind of black and white stamping in the background, and then coloring just a portion of the image. And you don't even necessarily have to do the layered look. You could literally just stamp them down and then only color one portion of it. That would also be another take on the spotlight technique. But this is my favorite way to do it, where it's 2 pieces layered on top of each other. And one is kind of popped up. And you'll see that when we put the card together. So let's talk about this video hop now that we're a little ways into it. So this is part of the Marvelous Monthly release video hop for Altenew. They are very generously giving away $300 in prizes. So there's a $100 gift card for one lucky winner, and then $20 gift cards to 10 other winners. And so you're going to want to leave a comment, like, subscribe, all that stuff in order to be entered as you're moving through the hop. I believe that this time around I am the second to last stop on the hop. How about that? And so here you can see I'm just going to spray with my stamp cleaner because I do have some over stamping, and then I'm just going to go in. This is just a baby wipe and some stamp cleaner and clean up the kind of what are we calling this? The platform. The sticky mat, I think is what it's called. And then so now here I'm just double checking that everything is lining up and is looking the way that I want it to. And then once I'm sure everything is good, then I will move on to the coloring. For this particular card, like here I did get a couple of fingerprints because that obsidian ink is amazing, but it's a pigment ink, and so sometimes it can get on your fingertips and then you can transfer it. So just be careful to make sure that it's dry before you start touching things. So the largest panel is where we're going to do the black and white coloring. It's really just a bunch of gray tones. And so I am using some warm grays for that. These are Altenew's artist markers. And I'm just going to add shadows. And so like typically you would switch colors for each. So like your flowers would be one color, your leaves would be another color, your background might be another color. But for this, because everything is in that kind of gray scale, you're going to color everything with these gray markers. Now, you guys know I believe in being totally transparent. This marker needs to be refilled, and I don't have a refill for it. So I'm kind of like shambling my way through, like limping along, so that I can get this blended out. But I would not, genuinely, I would not recommend that you do this because you have a chance that you could possibly ruin your nib and you don't want to do that. So just make sure your markers are well inked before you're going in there. You don't want to be dry rubbing your nib and ruining your investment. But so I didn't color the whole thing in. You can if you're kind of like a completist. It's difficult for me not to because I like to see everything done in its entirety. It's just how my brain works. But because I kind of had that marker that was like on its last leg, I chose to really just concentrate on the edges, the portions that I needed to be colored, because this other panel that we've stamped and then we'll color will go over top of it, and you won't be able to see any of the uncolored portion that kind of sits on the inside. So, and you'll do the grays through everything, for the flowers, the leaves. I did not do it for the background because there was no need. I didn't even know that I was going to do the blue background until I decided I was going to do the blue background. But anyway, you want to add shadows any point where two objects meet or any point where one object lays on top of another. So any like petals that are tucked in and they're below other petals, those should have shadows. And then here, this is the completed piece. I will tell you that I think that the grayscale coloring looks mighty cool on its own. Like, I think that that is a really beautiful way to create like kind of an elegant card that I probably should utilize, and I don't. So this pink combination is actually from the what is it called? Sunshine something. Let me look. Sunshine Valley Garden set. This is I think it's set F. So Altenew, when they first released their markers, they used to do them by letters, and now they have really pretty names for them. And so this is one of the ones that has a pretty name actually printed on the one that I have, which is the Sunshine Valley Garden set. And it's a lot of really pretty pinks, greens, and yellows. And so I'm going to be using those to do the coloring. The other, the blue in the background is actually from their first set, which is set A. It probably has a really pretty name now that I don't know. But anyway, it'll all be linked below. So if you are a follower of my videos, then you may have seen this video before. Am I recycling content? Not on purpose. No, I'm not. But again, because I believe in being transparent, like I'm going to address it. I was a part of an Altenew video hop last week as well. And when I was posting the videos, I completely mixed up which one needed to go where. And this one should have been second, and I put it up first. And so I was like, I'm going to redo the voiceover. Just first of all, to explain that in case you've already seen it. And if you're like, wait a minute, girlfriend, I have seen your video. I have seen this. You have. You're correct. Some of you have. When I realized that I had made the mistake, I marked it as private because I was horrified. Like, in all of the years that I have been working for companies, that has never happened to me. And I kind of panicked. And so I marked it as private super quickly because I didn't want any more people to see it than had already seen it. And it wasn't a huge amount, thankfully. So here the pink is done. I'm just double checking it against that gray to make sure I didn't miss any areas that needed to be colored. And then I'm going to move on to the green. For the green, I'm doing it a little bit differently. Sometimes with this technique, it can be hard to tell like what's what and what needs to be colored with the lines, especially on the secondary piece where you don't have the full complete image. So here when I'm going in with my lightest green color, and I am just kind of marking or mapping what portion needs to be colored green for my things to line up properly. And so that can be just a little trick that can be super helpful to make sure that everything gets colored and you don't keep having to go like back and forth between the two for pieces that you missed. But anyway, so one of the things that I didn't realize was happened when I marked it private is that somewhere in the world people were actually in the middle of watching the video. And then I just, poof, it was gone. Like several people were like, I thought I was losing my mind because I saw a video and then the video was gone, or I was in the middle of watching the video and then the video was gone. And so if you were one of those people, please accept my my apologies. But I panicked and I had to make a move, and I didn't want any more people to see it than had already seen it. So I could have done a completely different card, but truly, I really like the spotlight technique, and I still wanted to be able to showcase that in this set. And so, you know, you live, you learn. Next time I'll triple check instead of just double check, to make sure that I'm using the correct product on the correct day. So everybody was super good about it. And actually, I had emailed the girl who works for Altenew, and she didn't get back to me. Well, it turned out that just as luck would have it, she happened to be sick for like 2 days. So it's a good thing I made a move, because nobody was going to tell me what to do. Nobody's going to tell me what to do. So here, I told you about the pigment ink business. You can totally leave this with your white background. But because I did get a couple of little fingerprints on it, I just wanted to put in a background that was going to mask any of the areas where maybe I got little smudges or whatever that I wasn't a super big fan of. And so I just chose two kind of lighter blue-green colors. And so the darker one, I'm outlining everything and blending it towards the center with just a couple little flicking motions. And then with the lighter one, I will go in and fill in everything else. Again, this is not necessary. This was a decision that I made based on the circumstances of this particular card coming together. So just went over all of this until I was happy with the blending. And then I'm going to go in and stamp my sentiment. Super cute sentiments in this. I chose one. It's got the script word kind. And so I decided I was going to keep it simple. I had a lot going on with the card. So I just did a simple be kind sentiment, and I stamped these in that obsidian ink as well. It's a good ink. It's such a good ink. And then after that was done, I added some shimmer to my flowers, because you guys know I love the shimmers, the glitters, all of that stuff. This panel in and of itself would be completely fine. Also adding some white highlights to like the stamen of the flowers. But this panel in and of itself would be great. But with the kind of like the spotlight technique, it really gives it like that wow factor. And so I like to pop mine up. I just feel like it takes it to that next level. You don't have to. You will still get the spotlight effect without popping it up. I just feel like it gives it a little bit more wow. I use the liquid glue on top of my foam adhesive to give me a little bit more wiggle room to make sure everything is lined up. And I did find that in order to line this up, it was easier for me if I stood up from my chair and looked directly down over it to make sure all of my lines on all four sides were lined up, and then I just smushed it down. I added a few little rhinestones to accent my sentiment, and then that's it. That's the whole technique. So thank you so much for joining me. I always appreciate your time and your grace for my little mistakes. Please hop along next. Your next stop on the hop is Bridget Casey, and she's very lovely. I'm sure you'll be super happy with her card. So thank you guys so much. I'll catch you on the next video. Bye.